Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna discuss finances and money. Um, I do have obtaining a certification in finance, graduate certification in finance, because you could get one in undergrad. And I just wanted to talk about finances because this is something that we don't really talk about as music therapists. It's not really enforced in our brains too much. So I'm just going to talk about saving and what to do when you get that first job and how to save accordingly for the greater good of yourself and your future family and your current family, I mean, I give money to my parents sometimes. Sometimes. When I worked full-time, I gave money much more frequently than I do now because I work part-time, but you gotta give credit where credit is due. Okay, so I'm on track to learning investment strategies and, risk-taking and risk and return and future value and present value and interest rates and all that fun stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that because that's a topic for another day, and buying stocks and investments and bonds and there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot at risk. And as a music therapist, you don't really have that much to begin with, so I do not recommend jumping into a risk, okay? If you're 24, 25, and you've been working as a music therapist for 2-3 years, then it's a good idea to go ahead and jump in and buy a stock, buy a more risky investment and watch the market move as you grow. I think that's a good idea, but I would not recommend jumping in and buying a risky investment when you just get your first job. Now, I know the business people do it. I know sometimes nurses do it, but you got to remember that they're going to be making more money than you are fresh out of school. I hate to say it, but that's reality. So if they buy a more budgeting wise, they have enough money to risk $10,000 in a risky investment when they're 22, 23, whereas you need to wait until you're 24, 25. You're just waiting 2 years. It's really not that big a deal. But that's what I recommend because it's first of all, it's a risky investment, and second of all, you need $10,000 to put away and not touch. And as music therapists, it's kind of hard to save $10,000 when you're fresh out of school paying student loans and paying bills and stuff like that. So yeah, so I recommend if you're going to take on a risky investment, start thinking about it when you're 24, go for it when you're 25, and then you keep it until you're 65. Maybe if you want to keep it till you're 67 because you started 2 years late, you could do that too. But we're not going to really talk too much about investments today. That was just a little side note here. Right now, we're going to discuss emergency funds, saving, 401k, Roth IRA, all that fun stuff. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because most of this stuff you can kind of figure out on your own. I wrote it down. That's how important it is to me. So I'm going to start first with an emergency fund. As a music therapist, it is very, very, very necessary that you have an emergency fund because you don't really know what's bound to happen in our situation with the coronavirus. I haven't heard of too many music therapists getting laid off, but I'm going to be straight up. If I was on the administration team, I would totally furlough all creative arts therapists. It's nothing personal. It's just that working in a nonprofit, we don't really have the resources or the money, and we're not making enough money to pay for these services. So, like, that's me, and I'm just saying that, like, I haven't heard any administrators claim that position just yet, but it's bound to happen. So when it happens, and especially if you're like a freelancer, because like if you're a freelancer, you could still have a job, but just no clients. So it is always important to have an emergency fund, especially as a music therapist. So with emergency funds, I recommend doing a percentage of your salary. So it's always best to do a percentage of your hourly wage or a percentage of your weekly salary. And what you want to do is you want to put it into like categories. So it's good to do like $1,000 to start, right? And then 5,000 and then 10,000. And then here it has a recommendation of a 6-month emergency fund, but that can be kind of subjective because some people need 20,000 for a 6-month emergency fund and other people need $1 million. I fall into the $1 million category. But $1,000 is good. And then if you go from there, like if you're putting $1,000 a year into your emergency fund, then it's going to take you 10 years to accumulate $10,000. If you want to influence that, you could always put in more. You could do 1,000 a month is kind of difficult, but maybe if you wanted to do like 1,000 every 6 months to kind of speed up the process, or if you have a second job, maybe you could opt to do $1,000 into the emergency fund every 3 months. But 10 to 20,000 is a good like emergency fund. I mean, think about a car. Like that's one of the biggest things when it comes to emergency funds. Like if you need a car, you know, $20,000 is like a good emergency fund for that money to go towards a car or car maintenance or anything like that. If you lose your job, you have to remember that you probably will get unemployment, but $20,000 is still a decent amount with the unemployment to kind of balance out while you're being furloughed or if you're, you know, unemployed. So 20,000 is probably good, but like start small. $1,000 every year, right? And then maybe $1,000 every 6 months put away, $1,000 every 3 months, and before you know it, you'll be at the high level of $10,000, and then hey, with interest, then you get to 20. It's always better, so with interest too, if it's a savings account or a checking account, you want the interest to be high. If you're taking out a loan or borrowing money, you want the interest rate to be low. That's again another general rule of thumb. Moving on, we're going to do 401k because a lot of places have 401ks, but the thing is that you need to work at these facilities for at least a year. And what happens is with these 401ks, most places will match it. So what that means is if like I decide, okay, I'm going to put $5 every paycheck into the 401k, then my employer also has to put $5 into my 401k. So technically you're getting like a free $5. Now the one dilemma with this though, and this is like most important, is if you're doing an employer 401k, they choose the 401k. And that's a problem to me, because when the employer chooses a 401k, what ends up happening is they'll choose one where they get a good deal, and it's not necessarily the best 401k for your personal needs. And I'll give you a perfect example. So my old employer decided to choose a 401k, and this 401k, like, it was very risky, but there wasn't that great of a return. And that's the thing, is the more risk you take, the greater your return is supposed to be. So if you are taking on a lot of risk and you're not going to get a significant return, like that's a red flag. And that's like what our 401k company was, not necessarily the plan I had. And then another thing with my company's 401k is that it was a decent, like, it was a decent interest rate. It wasn't that great. And then the plan itself, like, terminated once you left the job. So once you left the job, you had to move the money into another, like, account, and then they charged you money. They charge you a percentage of the holdings when you moved it into another account. So the point that I'm trying to make is that if I put $5 into this account and my employer matched it with another $5,000, and let's say I worked for 2 years at the company and I saved $20,000, when it came time to leave the company, this money would have ended up being $5,000. So it's like I would have ended up losing $15,000 of my own money. Like, so that's something to keep in mind. You really want to study, like, okay, if the company matches it, great, but you really need to study, like, where it's going and what's the deal with this company, because, like, you could potentially, you could lose money through a company 401k, especially if it's your first job and you're going to move on afterwards, like me. So in that case, for me, the best situation was to do a DIY 401k. And all that means is you just put the money into a savings account. And when you choose a savings account or a CD or a money market or any of that kind of stuff, you're supposedly getting a lower interest rate than if you put it into the company's 401k. But then you also have to remember, if the company's 401k isn't that great, you could potentially be losing money in the long run. Okay, so there you go. Then we have our Roth IRA retirement. Okay, and I should probably explain, like, the Roth IRA and the 401k, because, like, sometimes they have like limitations on these accounts. So, like, the 401k is pre-tax, so if you take the money out before the due date, you will get taxed on it. It is safe. Sometimes it's made up of bonds and regular income, and it's a blend of funds. It has a risk of stocks, and then it has bonds to kind of balance everything out. And then the Roth IRA, this one, so like a Roth IRA, you have to make a certain amount, but it's not like that high. It's kind of more doable if you're a music therapist. And with the Roth IRA, you have to withdraw. The earliest is 59.5, so 59 and a half. So there you go, and this is after tax dollars. So a Roth IRA is really good long-term investment. Like, my life philosophy is we're here for a good time, not a long time. So I do not really like the idea of locking money up and waiting until I'm 59 and a half to get the money, because what if I don't reach 59 and a half? Like, you never know, okay? Like, what if I decided to get a second master's after I'm done this master's? You know, what if I decide to opt for the bigger tires or the family car because maybe I'm unexpectedly expecting? You know, like, you don't really know what life kind of throws at you, and I think it's good to have money in a Roth IRA or a locked up investment like CDs are 5 years, but, like, you know, I think it's good to have money locked away, but you shouldn't lock away everything, because you never know what's going to happen. And then if you need to get into that Roth IRA or a CD before the expiration date, you get charged like out the wazoo. So Roth IRAs are really good. It's just that you have to make sure that you're prepared to live without this money for a long period of time. So that's why emergency fund is number one to develop. Then 401k, because by the time you develop the emergency fund, you're probably going to be at your company for like 3 months, 6 months, or a year, you know. And then that's when you're eligible for the 401k. And then the Roth IRA, as a music therapist, I do suggest starting that like 25, 26, because, you know, you're going to retire at 59, right? I guess technically you could potentially start it when you're 29, but like then, you know, then you already lost out on some money that you could have achieved. But just make sure that like your loans, your undergraduate loans or your graduate loans are pretty paid off before you go throwing like $20,000, $50,000 into that Roth IRA. Like you could put, depending on the account, you could put like $10,000 in there to start, and then have that in there up until like you're 35 and you pay off your loans, and then you have like, you know, more of an income, and then you could throw more in there. But just don't put money in there that you possibly could need in the future. All right, so another thing you could do is you can always automate your money to go into a savings account, again depending on the check or depending on the account. And then, of course, as a young individual, young professional, most importantly, you want to have a fun money account, or money you're putting away for fun. So I have a travel fund. I want to go to University of Miami football game. I want to go to Ireland. I want to go to Asia. I want to go to Peru. I want to go to the West Coast. I got a lot of places. I've gone to a lot of places, but I got a lot of places I want to go. I also want to invest in school. Currently in grad school right now, but like, you know, that could be a future investment that you might want to do. And then, of course, I created a 5-year financial plan for my personal self. And this would, I guess, equivalent, like, I want to accomplish these things in the next 5 years. But most people, it probably would take 10 to 15. But anyway, in the near future, because 10 years is the near future, you might want, you know, a house, go back to school, car expense, kids, emergency funds. And like that's my 5-year financial plan, but for most people that's like a 10-year plan. Anyway, so that's a lot of money to be putting away. Even if you put away a small percentage, like $5 here for the 401k, 20% for the emergency fund, you know, 15% for the Roth IRA, then like, oh, you want to go back to school, oh, you want to travel, blah, 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 blah. I hate to break it to you, friends, but if you're getting paid $35 to $45 annually, if you save correctly, you're going to end up taking home less than $20,000. And that shouldn't be anything ashamed of, because it's better to be investing money in these things and taking home $20,000 than paying $5 for Spotify Premium. And like, you know what I'm saying? Spotify Premium is so stupid. YouTube, like all of the subscription things are stupid. And if you use them for music therapy, you need to get the company to pay for it or reimburse you. That's what I do. And that's like so important, because like that $5 or $10 or however, I don't really remember what's what, because yet again, I don't pay for it. But if you're putting $5 a month into Spotify Premium, like you need to get the company to pay for that. And then you could put your $5 into the 401k, and then the company could be giving you $5 for the 401k. So then you're actually getting $10 from the company for free. So like that's how you kind of work the system. But it's always better to like put money away, at least half of your paycheck. I know they say like half of your paycheck should go to the bills, but no. Like half of your paycheck should be going into investments. Half of your paycheck should be going back to you for the future, for future financial goals. That's like key. That is key. And then your living expenses, they really need to be less than 40%. That's the way it really should. As a financial advisor, consultant, person with a graduate degree, that's what you need to be doing. Fuck this 50%, What's the rule? I think it's so stupid. 50%, 30%, 20%? No. 50% needs to go back to you. And if you can't do 50% right now, especially because, you know, you might be paying off loans, you want to make sure that a lot of money is going back to you for future investments, and you will thank me later. I mean, look at me. I'm gonna buy a house in like less than a year, and I'm young. So look at me. I follow this rule, and I'm gonna buy a house, and I'm gonna graduate, and I don't have money out the wazoo, but I can definitely accomplish major financial goals before I reach 30. And that's the goal. Most people, you know, are spending money, buying new clothes, Spotify premium, and then they're not able to like travel, or they're not able to like have a elaborate wedding or buy a house all on their own. And it just makes you really proud, like, when you can do things like that. And for me, like, buying a house before the age of 26, technically, that makes me feel rich. Being able to travel, that makes me feel rich. Spending money on shoes, even though I have a shoe obsession, does not make me feel rich. It just brings me joy in the moment, but not long term. These investments will help bring you joy and financial security long term, and that is the goal. To be financially secure and develop good habits as a music therapist with a lower income salary. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.